When it comes to phones with the word Pro in the name, like, I don't know, the iPhone 17 Pro and the Pixel 10 Pro, the big difference between these and the phones that aren't Pro is the zoom. The regular iPhone 17 doesn't even have a telephoto lens, and the vanilla Pixel 10 has one, but it is much weaker hardware than what's on the Pro models. Since zoom is so important to the value of these phones, why not put them through a little test? Check out these two photos. This is what I saw with each phone from where I was standing. And then this is what I saw when I zoomed in. Which do you think is better and which phone took which photo? Got your answer? Okay, tuck that away for a bit and let me tell you how this zoom showdown is going to work. So I'm going to do my best to be as objective as possible with these comparisons. This will be a bit tricky though because the telephoto lenses on these phones are quite different. For example, Apple decided the hardware sweet spot for the iPhone 17 Pro is a 4x optical zoom, while Google stuck with a 5x optical zoom for the Pixel 10 Pro. That one step difference might not sound like a huge deal, but it means these two phones are rarely playing on a level field. If I shoot a photo at 4x, like this LinkedIn logo in San Francisco, the iPhone is using pure physical glass, while the Pixel is forced to fake it using a digital crop. But the second we push it into 5x, the tables flip. Now the Pixel gets to use its physical hardware and the iPhone is stuck relying on software. Both of these telephoto lenses are backed by massive 48 megapixel sensors, which gives them a ton of raw data to play with. But doing a true side-by-side comparison means one phone is almost always leaning on algorithms, while the other gets to lean on actual physics, depending on how I take the shot. So let's go back to the example I showed you earlier. The iPhone's photo is on the right, and the Pixel's photo is on the left. I pushed into 10x on both phones to make it somewhat fair, so both of them are using their telephoto lenses, but also both of them are relying on software and AI to compose the final shot. Which do you think is the better photo? I think they are pretty damn close in this shot, but jump down in the comments and let me know if you got the right answer the first time I showed the photos, and also let me know which one you liked better. For the next example, let's try 6x. This is the fairest zoom, I think, because both phones are using digital crop, but 6x is still low enough that we're getting as much optical clarity as possible. I'm going to show you a string of photos here, starting with this one. Right away, I noticed that the Pixel creates a more lifelike image. Look at the pillars on the left. See how the shadows are more realistic? You can see the same thing with the graded material on the roof. The Pixel also wins when you pixel peep. Forgive the pun. Look how much grainier the no stopping anytime sign is in the iPhone image compared to the Pixel. The tree foliage behind it is also really bad. The iPhone does win out with the overall color tone though. When we zoom back out, the iPhone has a cooler tone to it overall, which I think is a better representation of the scene. Here's another pair of pictures, this time of a statue in Nevada where I live. The iPhone shot looks like someone cranked up the texture too high, which you can really see in the lower half of the statue. This is kind of misrepresenting the sculptor's intent, as the top half is supposed to be rough and the bottom half is supposed to be smooth, but the iPhone makes it look like that's not the case. I will say though that the iPhone did a better job with the shadows this time. One more set of photos at 6x. This is a sign in downtown Nevada on a nearly cloudless day. In my opinion, the iPhone's coloring is way off here and the sign is too dark. Notice how the texture of the wall is cranked up again too? I don't know why the iPhone does this all the time. I get that it makes the photo appear to have more detail and sharpness, but it also just looks unrealistic. Let's move on to more extreme zoom levels. First, here are two shots at 20x of a sign promoting Marin County. We're well beyond optical advantage at this point, as all the phones are doing is digitally cropping and then using AI to smooth things out. Honestly, the iPhone wins here hands down. The Pixel image looks very fuzzy, while the iPhone's looks nice and crisp. Also, look at the tree, which is a reflection on the window. There's way more tree detail in the iPhone image than the Pixel's. Here's another set at 20x and another time that the iPhone certainly wins. This is a difficult shot because the camera wants to focus on the street sign and not the tree, but for some reason, the iPhone understands this better than the Pixel. The tree looks more realistic, the sticker on the sign is almost legible in the iPhone photo, and the Pixel photo looks like it was created with a trash AI program. Honestly, Google's not doing so great with these 20x shots. One more 20x example here. another sculpture. Unlike the previous sculpture, the iPhone wins this again. The statue is more in focus and looks much more true to life. Sorry Google, but you failed this round pretty miserably. After 20x though, things get a little unfair. The iPhone 17 Pro can only go as far as 40x, whereas the Pixel 10 Pro can go all the way to 100x. Granted, the 100x photos from the Pixel 10 Pro almost always come out awful, which you can see with this purple flower that looks like an oil painting and this Novato glass sign that has waxed tree leaves in front of it. Sometimes you can land something good though, like this stoplight. I think this is a totally usable photo and pretty impressive for 100x on a smartphone. Regardless, I highly recommend never going this far in zoom if you want quality you can depend on. But just for the fun of it, let's do another game. Here are two photos, both shot at 40x, which is as high as the iPhone can go. Which do you like better, and which phone took which photo? Got your guess? Okay, here's the answer. It's pretty interesting that Google failed so badly at 20x, but then clearly destroyed the iPhone at 40x. What's up with that? I'm not entirely sure, but it is pretty obvious with these shots that the Pixel is better. So far, all these examples have been under ideal conditions, outside during the day with plenty of natural light. But what happens when we do things in low light? Apple uses a proprietary system called night mode in these situations, while Google uses its own called night sight. How do these compare? Well, let's take a look. Here's a shot of a playground at 4x from both phones at dusk. Guess which one is which? Remember, the iPhone is shooting optically at this level, while the Pixel is cropping in. Here's the answer. Why are these photos so different? Well, the main reason is that with Pixels, you can manually turn on night sight whenever you want, but with iPhones, you can either have night mode completely off or set to automatic. There's no way to tell your iPhone to purposely use night mode, which is really dumb. Here's another example at 4x, but with the iPhone actually using night mode. I think the iPhone photo is better here. Look at the grass in the background of the iPhone image compared to the Pixels. Yikes. Also, the table itself is very blurry from the Pixel. Here's another set, this time at 5x, which gives the Pixel the advantage. Take a good look and figure out which one you think is which. Ready? Here's the answer. I like the Pixel shot here better, although I must admit that they are pretty similar, considering the Pixel is using pure optics and the iPhone isn't. Finally, here's a 10x shot using the phone's night modes. This one really pushes both night sight and night mode. Take a good look before deciding which is which. Ready? Here's the answer. I think it's pretty obvious that the iPhone won this round. Look at how mushy the camera is in the Pixel photo. Yuck. Okay, so that's it for photos. I have some final thoughts on those, but before I get to that, let's quickly do two video tests. First, here's a comparison in ideal lighting conditions with both phones at 10x. I was going to use a tripod for this to make it more fair, but then I figured that would be silly because 99% of the time people are taking videos, they don't have tripods. So these clips are with both phones in my hands. Here's which is which. Honestly, there's no contest here. The iPhone video is more stable, sharper, and more professional looking than the Pixels. Let's be real here, it's kind of laughable how much better the iPhone is. Here's another set of videos also at 10x, but this time in low light conditions. To me, both of these videos are bad. Smartphones are just not good for video in low light. But if I had to pick one of them, I'd go for the iPhone. So what's my takeaway from all this? I think it was really interesting that the Pixel failed spectacularly in the 20x examples, but in all the other cases, the Pixel won, or at the very least, matched the iPhone equally. So really, I've learned to stay away from 20x on the Pixel, which is interesting. I also reaffirm that the iPhone slays for video and the Pixel can't even hold a candle to it. Google, if you're watching this, video is your sore spot and you need to make it better. Sorry, that's just how it is. If you want to take a closer look at all the photos and videos from this test, I've left a link to the raw, unedited media in the description. If you enjoyed this, I'd love it if you subscribed. And if you want to see an even deeper comparison between the iPhone 17 Pro and Pixel 10 Pro, check out this video here, where I go over AI, translation, gaming, and a whole lot more. I'll see you all down in the comments.